What makes a war film truly British? The courage or the quiet despair that follows it? Imagine a world where history bleeds into cinema and every commando mission feels too real to be fiction. Some of these films told the truth. Others hid it behind smoke and propaganda. Tonight we uncover 15 British Second World War commando stories on film, ranked by how close they came to reality. Number 15. Attack on the Iron Coast, 1968. When Attack on the Iron Coast premiered in 1968, it was dismissed as a minor entry in the wave of British war films that followed the Dirty Dozen. Yet beneath its modest budget and fictional names lay echoes of a true story. The disastrous Dieppe raid of 1942. The film stars Lloyd Bridges as Commander Wilson, a Royal Navy officer leading a suicide mission against a Nazi coastal fortress. The tension builds around his desperate effort to redeem a failed operation that cost hundreds of lives. The premise may sound Hollywood, but it was heavily inspired by Lord Mountbatten's real Operation Jubilee, which left more than 3,000 commandos dead or captured. Censors allowed its release, but military officials bristled at its parallels to Dieppe. They called it sensational and misleading. The filmmakers defended it as tribute, not criticism. Behind the scenes, it was shot on location in Britain, using leftover Royal Navy stock footage to simulate battle sequences. Audiences respected its grit, but critics found its patriotism uncomfortable, too raw for a country still healing from wartime mistakes. Today it stands as a forgotten reminder that heroism and futility often march side by side in British war memory. A film built not on victory, but on the haunting cost of trying again after failure. Number 14. The Cockleshell Heroes, 1955. Praised for its realism, yet sanitized for its time. The Cockleshell Heroes dramatized one of Britain's most daring raids, Operation Frankton. In December 1942, 10 Royal Marines paddled collapsible canoes up the Gironde River to sabotage German ships in Bordeaux. Only 2 survived. José Ferrer both directed and starred as Major Hasler, leading the raid with an American sensibility that some British veterans resented. They said it felt too glamorous, too cheerful for what was essentially a suicide mission. Government censors demanded tone adjustments. The real Hasler was consulted, but objected to romantic subplots and comic relief. Yet, Ferrer argued the film needed heart, not just pain. Filmed with authentic military cooperation, it used Royal Marines from Portsmouth to stage the canoe assault sequences. Veterans confirmed the tactics were accurate, even if dialogue was dramatized. At its release, the film divided critics. Some praised its courage and honesty. Others called it propaganda masked as patriotism. But it inspired a generation to remember a mission long classified as secret. Its legacy endures. The Royal Marines still commemorate Operation Frankton annually, calling it one of their proudest moments. The Cockleshell Heroes remains the cinematic echo of British defiance, quiet, understated, but unforgettable. Number 13, The Sea Wolves, 1980. By the time The Sea Wolves arrived in 1980, war movies had grown louder, bloodier, more cynical. Yet this British production took an unexpected approach. It told a forgotten story of old men turned commandos. Based on Operation Creek, it followed retired British officers in India who volunteered to attack German ships hiding in neutral Goa. Led by Gregory Peck Roger Moore and David Niven, the film dramatized an unlikely mission that truly happened. Executed by veterans of the Calcutta Light Horse in 1943, it should have been a somber tribute. But producers chased glamour. Instead of restraint, they gave audiences tuxedos, cocktails, and Bond-like espionage. Veterans objected, saying it trivialized their sacrifice. The Indian government also protested its depiction of Goan neutrality, calling it politically reckless. Filming in India proved chaotic. Equipment failed in humid heat, and Peck nearly quit over script rewrites. Yet director Andrew V. McLaglen insisted authenticity mattered. He consulted surviving members of the unit who provided first-hand tactics and maps. Critics were divided. Some called it old-fashioned. Others found its nostalgia touching. Decades later, historians confirmed its surprising accuracy. The mission truly happened, and its secrecy lasted 30 years. The Sea Wolves is a cinematic ghost story dressed as adventure, reminding us that courage is not the property of youth, but the privilege of conviction. Number 12. The Guns of Navarone, 1961. When the Guns of Navarone exploded onto screens, in 1961 it was hailed as one of the greatest war adventures ever filmed. Based on Alistair MacLean's best-selling novel, it told of an Allied commando team sent to destroy massive Nazi guns, threatening British naval convoys in the Aegean Sea. Though fictional, the story was inspired by numerous real British sabotage operations in the Mediterranean, including the raids on Leros and Navarino. Gregory Peck, David Niven, and Anthony Quinn led the cast their stoic heroism, mirroring the stiff upper lip ethos of British wartime mythology. The film's scale was enormous, blending espionage, sabotage, and emotional tension. The climactic assault on the German fortress became one of cinema's defining war sequences. Yet, behind the heroics lurked controversy. The British War Office initially hesitated to endorse it, fearing audiences might see it as glorifying reckless operations that caused unnecessary losses. Censors cut scenes showing captured soldiers tortured by the Gestapo, claiming it was too brutal for mainstream audiences. Filming in Rhodes was a nightmare. The Greek army provided real explosives, causing several accidental detonations and nearly injuring Niven, who later developed blood poisoning from a stunt injury. Despite chaos, the film became an international hit, winning the Oscar for Best Special Effects. Its accuracy was debatable, but its spirit was pure Royal Navy. Desperate men facing impossible odds. Its legacy lives on through countless imitators, and even a sequel reminding viewers that myth often hides a grain of history, and that courage sometimes exists only in the silence before detonation. Number 11. The Heroes of Telemark, 1965. The Heroes of Telemark dramatized one of the most critical covert missions of the war, the Allied effort to sabotage Nazi Germany's heavy water plant in Norway. The operation, known as Gunnerside, was vital to stopping Hitler's atomic ambitions. When the film debuted in 1965, it was praised for excitement, but criticized for playing loose with facts. Starring Kirk Douglas and Richard Harris, it told of Norwegian resistance fighters working with British commandos to infiltrate the Vemork plant and destroy its supply of heavy water. The real mission was carried out by Norwegian operatives trained in Scotland who skied across frozen plateaus to plant explosives. Director Anthony Mann used Norway's icy wilderness to amplify the isolation and dread, giving the film a haunting authenticity. Yet, controversy followed. Historians noted that British intelligence played a larger role than shown, and several surviving commandos said the Hollywood treatment overemphasized personal conflict and romance at the expense of realism. Still, the snowy chase sequences and harsh survival scenes were almost documentary in precision. Mann insisted on filming in sub-zero conditions to match the historical ordeal. Audiences embraced the film for its tension and restraint. It was less bombastic than American war epics, more focused on silence and patience than explosions. The Heroes of Telemark remains one of the few films that understood sabotage was not about glory, but about endurance and quiet sacrifice. Its frozen landscapes became a cinematic memorial to courage unseen. Number 10. Ill Met by Moonlight, 1957. Before James Bond made espionage glamorous, British war cinema had already captured it in Ill Met by Moonlight. Released in 1957 and based on the memoir by Sir Patrick Leah Fermor, it chronicled the true story of British commandos kidnapping a German general in occupied Crete. The real operation was so daring, it bordered on madness. Dirk Bogarde portrayed Fermor with quiet wit, while Marius Goring played General Kreipe, whose abduction in 1944 stunned both German and British forces. The film was directed by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger, masters of visual storytelling, who turned the Cretan Mountains into a theater of myth and tension. The War Office initially objected, fearing it revealed too much about Special Operations Executive tactics. Censors demanded several operational details be altered or omitted. Still, the filmmakers based their dialogue on actual mission reports and even consulted Fermor himself. Filming in Crete was treacherous. The crew faced storms, landslides, and equipment loss. Yet the result was extraordinary. Critics praised its restraint and intelligence. It felt authentic, not theatrical. The capture sequence where the general is intercepted under moonlight remains one of the most elegantly staged scenes in British war cinema. Though overshadowed by louder war movies, Ill Met by Moonlight endures as one of the most accurate portrayals of SOE operations ever filmed. It showed war as both theater and poetry, and reminded audiences that sometimes the most powerful victories are carried out in whispers, not gunfire. Number 9. The Dam Busters, 1955. The Dam Busters stands as one of Britain's most beloved war films. Released in 1955, it told the story of Operation Chastise, the daring Royal Air Force raid that used bouncing bombs to destroy German dams in the Ruhr Valley. The mission's true leader, Wing Commander Guy Gibson, became a household name, and the film immortalized his bravery. From the start, accuracy mattered. The filmmakers based the script on Paul Brickhill's book, and even used actual footage from the Ministry of Defense. The film's technical scenes showing the testing of Barnes-Wallace's revolutionary bomb were recreated in meticulous detail. The Royal Air Force provided aircraft and crews, making it one of the most authentic recreations of wartime air operations ever filmed. But not everyone approved. Some censors wanted to remove the details of radar evasion and flight altitudes, fearing they might still reveal military secrets. Others objected to Gibson's dog's name, which was later changed in modern broadcasts due to racial sensitivity. Behind the scenes, the production was turbulent. The miniature effects of the dam explosions pushed British technicians to their limits. Models repeatedly collapsed before cameras rolled, forcing costly reshoots. When released, audiences wept with pride. The film became a national symbol of ingenuity and sacrifice, capturing the precision and stoicism that defined British airmen. Today, historians still use it in classrooms, not just as entertainment, but as a cinematic record of courage under impossible pressure. Its legacy is not in explosions, but in the quiet discipline of men who believed perfection was the only path to survival. Number 8. The Colditz Story, 1955. In 1955, audiences crowded into cinemas to see The Colditz Story, a film based on the incredible real-life escapes from Colditz Castle, the supposedly escape-proof German prisoner of war camp. Directed by Guy Hamilton, it was one of the first British war films to focus not on combat, but on the cunning and endurance of Allied officers trapped behind enemy walls. Starring John Mills and Eric Portman, the film depicted the collaborative spirit between British and Allied prisoners who planned elaborate escapes using fake uniforms, maps, and tools built in secret workshops. What made it extraordinary was its authenticity. Much of it was filmed at the real Colditz Castle in East Germany, using genuine accounts from prisoners who lived through it. Yet the film sparked quiet discomfort in military circles. Some former inmates accused the script of simplifying the horror of imprisonment, while others objected to the humorous tone used in places. Censors softened certain torture references and removed dialogue, implying that German guards sometimes cooperated with the escapees. Behind the camera, Hamilton faced logistical nightmares. Shooting in post-war Germany required negotiating with Soviet authorities for access to the location. Crews worked under constant surveillance. Still, the result was remarkable. A film steeped in both claustrophobia and defiance. When it premiered, The Colditz Story earned critical acclaim for realism and restraint. It showed that heroism was not always loud or violent, but could exist quietly in patience and planning. The film remains one of the truest depictions of wartime captivity and human resilience ever produced. Number 7. The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. Though an Anglo-American production, The Bridge on the River Kwai carries a distinctly British soul. Released in 1957 and directed by David Lean, it was inspired by the real ordeal of Allied prisoners forced by the Japanese to build a bridge in Burma. The film's protagonist, Colonel Nicholson, played by Alec Guinness, embodied the British obsession with order, even in captivity. The accuracy of the film has long been debated. Historians argue it twisted events for drama. The real prisoners did not willingly collaborate, and the bridge was destroyed by Allied air raids, not commandos. Still, Lean's film captured the moral paradox of war more powerfully than any documentary could. It showed how discipline could turn into delusion, how duty could blur into madness. Production was grueling. Filmed in the jungles of Ceylon, the crew endured floods, leeches, and disease. Guinness nearly drowned filming the bridge scene, and several extras were injured during controlled demolitions. Yet, Lean's perfectionism paid off. The final explosion became one of the most iconic moments in cinema history. The film drew both praise and anger. British veterans protested its portrayal of cooperation with the enemy, calling it an insult. The Japanese government objected to its brutality, but audiences were transfixed. It won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Actor for Guinness. Despite its liberties, The Bridge on the River Kwai endures as a meditation on pride obsession and the human cost of discipline. Its final line, madness, still echoes like a judgment on the illusions men build in the name of honor. Number 6. The Hill, 1965. The Hill was unlike any other war film when it appeared in 1965. It had no explosions, no gunfire, and no grand battles. Instead, it focused on the psychological torment of British soldiers imprisoned in a North African military stockade during the war. Directed by Sidney Lumet and starring Sean Connery, fresh from his Bond fame, the film exposed the darker side of British military discipline. The accuracy of its depiction shocked audiences. Former prisoners confirmed that such punishment camps truly existed, where men were broken by forced marches and brutal officers. The hill itself, a man-made mound the soldiers were forced to climb repeatedly under the desert sun, became a symbol of pointless suffering. Censors debated banning it. The British Army condemned the script for undermining morale, claiming it exaggerated cruelty. Lumet refused to soften the story. He insisted it revealed an uncomfortable truth about authority and obedience. Production was physically punishing. Connery fainted several times during filming as temperatures soared above 100 degrees in the Spanish desert, yet he later called it his proudest performance. Critics agreed. The film won awards at Cannes and became a touchstone for anti-establishment war cinema. Unlike patriotic tales of valor, The Hill depicted war's invisible wounds. It reminded viewers that cruelty can exist on both sides of the uniform, and that sometimes the hardest battles are fought not against enemies, but against the system itself. Number 5. Went the Day Well, 1942. Released in the darkest year of the war, Went the Day Well was a chilling piece of propaganda disguised as thriller. Directed by Alberto Cavalcanti and produced by Ealing Studios, it imagined a quiet English village infiltrated by disguised German paratroopers. A nightmare scenario that felt horrifyingly plausible in 1942. The story followed ordinary villagers who discover the deception and rise up to defend their home using whatever weapons they can find. Though fictional, it was based on actual British Home Guard training manuals and real invasion fears circulating during the Blitz. The Ministry of Information approved the script, but demanded subtle messaging. It had to encourage vigilance without spreading panic. Despite its controlled intent, the film went further, showing shocking scenes of violence, including a vicar murdered inside his church. Audiences gasped at the realism. Filming took place in the English countryside, under tight secrecy. Many extras were real Home Guard volunteers, lending authenticity to tactics and dialogue. Cavalcanti, who had fled fascism himself, brought a sharp psychological edge to the story, portraying the enemy not as monsters, but as men, cold, efficient, and chillingly polite. When the film premiered, critics praised its courage. It became one of the few wartime movies to show that heroism could come from ordinary citizens. Decades later, historians hailed it as one of Britain's most accurate portraits of national paranoia, a film that taught viewers what to do if the unthinkable ever came to pass. Number 4. Where Eagles Dare, 1968. By the late 1960s, audiences demanded spectacle, and Where Eagles Dare delivered it in avalanche form. Directed by Brian G. Hutton and written by Alistair MacLean, it followed a crack team of British commandos sent to rescue an American general trapped inside a snowbound fortress deep in the Bavarian Alps. Starring Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood, it was part spy thriller, part demolition ballet. While the mission was fictional, it drew inspiration from real British operations behind enemy lines, particularly the exploits of the Special Air Service in occupied Europe. Historians later noted that several action sequences mirrored true events from declassified SOE missions. The production was dangerous and chaotic. Filming in Austria, the crew faced blizzards and treacherous terrain. Helicopters crashed, cameras froze, and Burton suffered altitude sickness. Yet the result was breathtaking. The cable car fight scene and final castle escape redefined how action could be filmed. Critics dismissed it as implausible, but veterans quietly admired its attention to tactics, weaponry, and the unspoken rules of sabotage. The dialogue between Burton and Eastwood brims with authentic military jargon, and the operations planning was vetted by ex-SOE advisors. The film became a global hit and remains a benchmark for British action cinema. Its accuracy may waver, but its spirit rings true. Audacity, discipline, and betrayal intertwined in a white hell of snow and steel. Where Eagles Dare captured the dream and delirium of British commando, myth-making at full cinematic throttle. Number 3. The Longest Day, 1962. Though an international production, The Longest Day remains one of the most ambitious depictions of the British role in D-Day. Released in 1962, it combined American, French, and British perspectives on June 6, 1944. For Britain, the film offered one of the most accurate portrayals ever of the paratrooper and commando landings that paved the way for liberation. Richard Todd himself, a D-Day veteran, portrayed Major John Howard leading the assault on Pegasus Bridge. Todd had actually fought in the same operation 20 years earlier. This astonishing overlap between actor and role gave the film authenticity no studio could fabricate. To preserve accuracy, producers consulted official military advisors and hundreds of veterans. Every uniform insignia and landing craft was rebuilt to scale. The film even used Royal Navy vessels that had participated in the invasion. Still, some controversy lingered. Critics accused the film of polishing chaos into coordination and minimizing the human confusion that defined the day. Behind the scenes, the logistical scope was staggering. Thousands of extras recreated the Normandy beaches. Aircraft and explosives were used on a scale unmatched until modern times. Filming often stalled due to weather, and Todd joked that the shoot felt like another invasion altogether. Despite its flaws, The Longest Day remains the definitive cinematic record of British valor on D-Day. It balanced grandeur with precision and gave faces to the nameless soldiers who crossed hellish beaches in the dawn of freedom. Its message endures. History is built not by nations, but by men who walk into the storm and do not turn back. Number 2. The Cruel Sea, 1953. When The Cruel Sea arrived in 1953, it stunned audiences with its brutal honesty. Based on Nicholas Montserrat's novel and directed by Charles Friend, it portrayed the relentless war in the Atlantic, fought not by glamorous heroes, but by weary sailors battling U-boats and the sea itself. Jack Hawkins played Captain Erickson, a naval officer haunted by guilt and exhaustion. The film's emotional gravity came from its realism. Many scenes were drawn directly from Montserrat's wartime diaries. The Royal Navy provided ships and crews, lending authenticity rarely matched in cinema. The Ministry of Defense cooperated, but insisted that no classified sonar technology or tactical procedures be revealed. Despite that restriction, the film captured the claustrophobic rhythm of convoy warfare, the endless nights, the freezing spray, and the silent deaths. During filming, the crew endured rough seas that destroyed equipment and drenched cameras. Hawkins himself fell ill, but refused to halt production. His weary performance mirrored the real fatigue of those who lived the war at sea. When it premiered, British veterans wept openly. Critics called it the most truthful depiction of naval warfare ever filmed. Its bleak honesty shattered romantic notions of victory. The ocean was not the enemy, nor the Germans. It was the indifference of nature itself. The Cruel Sea endures as Britain's greatest maritime war film, a hymn to endurance and loss told through the eyes of men who fought invisible battles against time and tide. Number 1. The Great Escape, 1963. Though largely remembered as an American classic, The Great Escape was rooted in a true British story. Released in 1963, it recounted the mass breakout from Stalag Luft. Third, masterminded by Royal Air Force officers in 1944. The real operation was led by squadron leader Roger Bushell, whose daring plan inspired the world. While the film added American characters for box office appeal, the heart of the story remained British. The tunneling methods, escape strategies, and coded messages were meticulously researched from war records and survivor testimonies. Filming was challenging. The set in Bavaria was built to exact scale, with 3 real tunnels constructed under strict supervision. Steve. McQueen's motorcycle chase was pure invention, but the rest, the digging, the forgeries, the execution of captured officers, was painfully authentic. Historians praised its respect for the fallen, while veterans debated its dramatization. The British Air Ministry insisted that the film end with the line dedicated to the 50, which honored those executed by the Gestapo after the escape. That moment turned entertainment into elegy. When it premiered, audiences cheered, then fell silent. Behind the excitement lay the truth. Bravery can bloom even in captivity, and defiance can be its own form of victory. The Great Escape remains the defining British commando story, not for its explosions, but for its spirit of hope carved through stone, darkness, and fear. From icy fjords to secret tunnels, these films turn British commando history into living legend. Some blurred truth, while others captured it raw and unflinching. But every story carried the same heartbeat, courage tested by chaos. Which of these missions do you think felt the most real? Leave your thoughts below, and remember to like, subscribe, and join the next mission into Forgotten Cinema.